So we are going to talk about a new package called Laravel Health. And this package, it can determine if your application itself is working correctly. Now you might think, hey, I already use an uptime service. Isn't that good enough? Well, those uptime servers, they probably just ping your homepage, and when your homepage is okay, they will say, hey, this site is okay. But actually, a lot of things can go wrong inside of your application as well. Imagine, for instance, that your queues are not running. Then you're not processing payments anymore or not sending out mails, and that is, of course, a problem. And usually you can fix these kind of things by using another kind of monitoring. Because the monitoring that I've just mentioned, that is called black box monitoring, where we treat your application as a black box and we take a look from the outside if it's okay. But there's also other kinds of monitoring, and that is white box monitoring. And with the white box monitoring, the monitoring happens inside of your application itself. Now, a good example of this kind of monitoring is a service like, for instance, New Relic. New Relic is an awesome service when you need it, and they can measure a lot of things on your server. And it works by installing an agent onto your server, and it hooks into various system events and reports back to that service. Now, if you need all the bells and whistles of something like New Relic, then it's a great option. But I think there is like a nicer way to go about this. And certainly if you don't need all the whistles and bells of New Relic. And that is something that I try to do in an application called Laravel Health. Using Laravel Health, it's easy to check if your application is healthy. It contains a couple of checks. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And it's also easy to write your own checks because it's just written in PHP. You can basically check whatever you want and use your own application logic to check if things are correctly. Okay, let's take a look at the documentation. So the package is already released. I released it yesterday, and I already fixed a few minor bugs that were in there. And using this package, you can add this to a service provider. You just call health checks, and then you give it one or more things that you want to check. In the package, there are a couple of checks built in, so CPU load, DB connection, and a couple more, but it's easy to add some of your own. There's also a dashboard, there's room for notifications, there's integration with Odir. So let's just try this package out. There's a question here or a remark. I hope it supports Laravel 6. If you know me a little bit, then it's probably no surprise that it doesn't support Laravel 6. It requires Laravel 8. While I was creating this package, I was even contemplating requiring PHP 8.1, but I thought maybe that's too early. So it's a PHP 8 only package, and you also need Laravel 8 for this. Can you make the website a little bit bigger? Sure I can, like that. Okay, but I'm not going to stay in the website. We're going to start using this package. So we are going to create a new Laravel application. So Laravel new, and I'm going to call it Health App. And I'm just going to follow the instructions from the package. So I start here with nothing. So this one is called Laravel Health. Isn't it called Laravel Health? CD Laravel Health. Did I make a typo here? It's Health App. Okay, of course. Health App. I've typed Laravel Health so many times that it's ingrained into my memory now. I don't really need Git repo, but I'm going to do it anyway for if I make mistakes that I can roll back again. Then we are going to follow the instructions. So installation and setup. And let's get this side by side. We are going to pull in the package like that. We're already at 1.3. Then it's optional, but I'm going to publish the config so I can show it to you. I'm going to show you that in the application itself. Yeah, let's also publish the migrations. That's a good idea. And I should migrate the database, but I don't have a database, so let's create one. So health app, like that. And let's maybe also open up this in PHP Storm so that I can configure the database name. It's already health app, okay, it's good. Some good defaults in there. Okay, so then I should be able to migrate the database. Okay, cool. Then I should schedule a command here to run every minute. And this is basically the command that will run all configured checks. So there's a command that you can use to run the checks manually, but if you're in a server environment or in a production environment, you want to run those checks automatically every minute. That's what we are going to do here. So let's copy this. Let's maybe do it like that. And in our kernel, we are going to add this one. Let's see what else we need to do. And that is the installation now, I guess. Okay. I don't need that terminal for a bit, so I'm going to go to the next chapter, registering your first check. That's what we are going to do next. Let me first take a look if there are any questions. A good Christmas present. Yeah, maybe this package could be seen as a nice Christmas present indeed. Okay, so next we need a place to register those health checks. And what I typically do is to create a service provider for this. So let's try that out. Make provider, and let's call it the health service provider, like that. And if everything's good, we have the health service provider here. Now, something that Laravel doesn't do automatically is register that health service provider. So let's do that. Health service provider, so it's being called. Cool. And now I can start adding a first check here. Let me make this a little bit cleaner, like that. And now let's start using these checks here. So let's import it. The health facade, and let's only start with the used disk space check for now. So this is a check, it's documented as well, that monitors the disk space that you use. And by default, I think it will complain when your disk is 70% full, then it will start sending warnings. Let's just try it out. So to run the checks manually, you can run health, I think it's check that the command is. And then it's running those checks. And there is a problem. There is a problem. So it ran the check, use disk space check. The disk is almost full, so it gave a warning. And then it tried to send a notification for this. But I guess that I didn't configure the notifications just yet, so let's do that now. The package will eventually send out a mail, and to quickly view a mail, I'm going to use Ray. So I'm going to require the spaCy Laravel Ray package. What that package will do is, by default, render all of the mails that are sent in an application. It will show those in Ray. So I think I should configure something here. Now that we're in the config file, maybe I can explain some things here. and not scroll through it. So a first option that we have here are the results stores. So these determine where you want to store the checks of your results. And by default, we're going to store them in the database, so you have a history of all the results of the checks. So using this information, you could plot a graph of disk space growing or decreasing over time. There are also a couple of other options. You could also write the results to cache, to a JSON file, to, for instance, to S3, and then you can let another system monitoring your health checks, or just in memory, which is nothing. I'm going to explain why this one can be handy as well. And here we come to the notification part. So whenever a check fails, it can send you a notification, because of course you want to know that something is wrong. And by default, we provide support for Slack and mail notifications. So here it's now configured for mail. And I guess that, one of these won't be a correct value. So I'm going to just use Vreket Spatie here. Vreket Spatie, like that. Let's make this also Vrek. Let's clear the cache. We clear the cache because by default, we will only send one notification per hour. So if there's anything that goes wrong, we don't spam you every minute, but you only get one notification every hour. And maybe just to be on the safe side, let's clear the config as well. And now if I open up Ray, and if I run the check again, run check, no, it's health check. That's it, I think. We should have gotten a notification, but Mailhawk. I think what I did wrong is this is probably still to SMTP, so let's write it to the log. This is how a exception is rendered in Ray, by the way. Let's do it away. Let's clear the config, clear the cache. I don't know if it's needed, but I'm going to do it just to be on the safe side. Health check. And yeah, there we have our notification. So this is the mail that will get sent. So your disk is almost full, 71% used. And you can see that the next time I do it, we still see that failure here, but you only get this one mail. If we're an hour further, then you'll get a new mail. That throttling is also something that you can configure. Where is it? It's somewhere here. Here, throttle notifications for minutes. So if you want to have notification every half an hour, you can set this to 30 if you want. That's how it works. Okay. Imagine now that you don't want to have like a failure when it's 70%, but you want to have like a failure when it's 90%. It's easy to do so. Just go to your health service provider, and all of these checks can be configured using PHP. So we don't have like any weird YAML format or any weird stuff. It's just PHP. And here you can just say, hey, fail this check. And let me move this out of the way. When it's above 90, and then it will fail when it's above 90. There's also another kind of warning that we can give. It's called warning. The only difference between these two is that if you have a warning, I think at the dashboard, the tile will be colored orange and not red. I'm going to show you the dashboard in a bit. That's also a cool feature. So let's set this to 80 and 90. And if I do the health check then again, then you can see that, that it's okay. Okay, just for fun, let's add another check here. And let's maybe do the environment check. And the environment check really needs no configuration. What this will check is that your environment is actually set to production. If on your production server you're not in production environment, then your application might expose some sensitive secrets, which probably you don't want. and probably it's sent to production, but it could be that for some reason somebody tried to edit this file and this isn't set to production without you knowing it. That's pretty bad. So I think it's okay to check this as well. So let's do this health check as well. You can see here that we ran the check, but it failed because the environment was expected to be, and here we have a little bug that I should solve. Here it's probably because it was expected to be production, but it was actually local. You can see here that I'm now checking all of these, checking these results just by running the health check. But probably there's a better way to do that. There's a dedicated list command that lists out all checks, and I'm going to execute that command in my terminal because the output is more beautiful here. Okay, let's try it. Health list, and here you can see that we have some beautiful output here. So the used disk space is okay, 71%, but the environment check failed because it was local. And here you can see that we actually did replace those placeholders. So pretty nice, I'd say. There are a couple of other checks as well. Let's maybe add one more, maybe the debug mode check, which makes sure that debug mode is actually set to false in production mode. But here it's going to fail as well because here it is false, but it just was actually true. And if I take a look here at the list, then you see that the check was added here as well. Now there's also another way to see these checks. I'm using the CLI now, and this is, I'm going to show you that first. A little bit of a code dive first. So we have some beautiful output here with a nice table and some colors going on. And you can see that we even have a little bit of padding so that it's rendered really beautiful. Under the hood, this output is rendered by Termwind. And Termwind is a fantastic package that's made by Nuno and some of his PHP buddies. Francisco, I think, is mainly working on it now. And what it basically does is that it brings the power of Tailwind to the CLI. Now, let me show you the actual blade file that is used to render this. So let's source dive a little bit. So vendor, spatie, Laravel Health, resources, or maybe let's go to the command first. So source, commands, list health check command. So that's the one that I was executing here. And if you take a look here, then how we output stuff is with a render function. That render function is part of Termwind itself. I think you'll see it being imported here. And we just give it a blade view here. And that blade view is list CLI. We pass it some arguments here. And if we go to our views directory of this package and go to list CLI, then you can see that we here have the HTML version of this. So you can use the power of Blade to just render things here. So that color here is just the color of the status. We do UC first of the status here. And we render just a table just like we're used to. And I think that is pretty nice. For me, this is much better than trying to programmatically call table and try to set backgrounds and try to align things myself. I can just use the power of Tailwind to just align stuff and put colors there. So if you don't know it yet, check it out, Termwind. I think if you just Google GitHub Termwind, you'll get on the right repository. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at how we can render these results on a web page. So if I go back to our documentation, then you can see that we can view all those check results on a web page as well. Let's take a look. And how that works is by registering a route in your application that just renders one of the controllers of our package. So let's try that. So I'm going to our routes file, web.php, like that. Let's maybe check if we can see this application in our browser, health app test. Oh, HTTP health app test, like that. This was not what I was expecting. Test. This is strange. Well, there. How do you see all the links? With links? Should I still link? Yeah, I'm not in my regular directory, so I think it's called link. And yeah, there we have it. So normally I have all my project in dev/code, and I have part file there, so it works for every directory there. But for streams, I often use my test directory, so I can just throw it away. But then then you have to do file link here. So this is working. So let's add that extra route here. Import here. Let's put it on the health thing here. For some reason, Safari really wants me to type HTTP here before health. And yeah, there we have our health dashboard. So here are all the results of our health checks. I created the initial version of this dashboard, but I should really mention that a contributor, Nick, I don't remember his last name, he really took the design to another level. There's also a dark mode for people that love that. So if I go to the health here and put dark mode here and refresh, then you see that we have a beautiful dashboard in dark mode here. You can also see that these checked results are from 5 minutes ago. That's because by default, when you go to the dashboard, it doesn't run the checks itself. It will only show you the latest results. And remember that in our configuration file, we configured it in such a way that the results are written into our database. Let's take a look at that. So I'm going to the health app here, application health result items, and here you can see all of the results here. You can see that the use disk space wrote a couple of things. You can see the notification matches that we had here. You can see also that we had a distinction between the warning and OK here. And we also write the information of a check as meta information. And this is a check can decide that for itself, but in the documentation, I say that you should have like a structured way of using meta so other systems can interpret this data. So if you want to do something, maybe a message of your own or sort of monitoring of your own, then you don't need to parse this message, but you can just grab into the JSON and go to that uptime percentage. That short summary here, that is the summary that is being listed on the dashboard. So that's how that works. Now, if you always want to have like the most fresh results on your dashboard, then you could add a query parameter here called fresh, and then it will actually run the checks before and then show you the latest results. So if I refresh here, we should have more results here. In normal circumstances, this will only be a maximum of 1 minute old, because remember that console kernel command, it will run in a production environment all checks on every minute. that's how that works. Okay, let's see if there are any questions here. Bum, bum, bum. A big hi. Hey, Steve. Dark mode. Yeah, I also like dark mode. Windows users crying over the F command. Yeah, so the disk space used check, it uses a Unix specific command to do that, but you can just create the Windows version of that check as well. And that's maybe a good segue to immediately start exploring how you can add a check of your own. And I'm not going to create a new check from scratch. I'm just going to source dive one so you can see how easy it is to do so. So let's maybe go to the health service provider here. And maybe let's take a look at how the source code of used disk space check actually looks like. So where this check is located in our package itself. So it comes from Laravel Health. And you can see that it's laughably small. Yeah. So every check that you make should extend the check base class that is provided by the package. So this class does a couple of things that you don't really need to care about, but the one thing that you care about is that you should define a method run on here. So it's marked as abstract, so if you make a new class, then PHP Storm will ask for that. Let's maybe show that in action. So I'm going to maybe create a map services, my own custom check, like that. And this one should extend our check, and now PHP Storm will ask, hey, you should implement these. So this is the bare minimum that you should implement. And let's continue here. Maybe it's easier here. So what we expect you to return is an object called result. So let's create a new result. So the easiest way to do that is just by making something and then just maybe put it in a variable and then just return the result. That's like the bare minimum that you need to do. But probably you want to do some kind of check here. I'm just going to make it true. So let's say that something bad happened here, and you want to notify user of that. Something bad happened. What you can do then is mark the result as failed and just return that. So that's the result itself. So failed just returns itself. And here you can put in a message, something really bad happened. And what will happen is that the package will actually mark the check as failed, and it will send a notification with this message. So that is what you should do. If the check is okay, you should mark it as okay, but by default it is marked as okay. So if you return it at this point, then it is okay. How you can add like some metadata is very simple. You just call meta and you give some meta information here. If you want to give like a short summary, then you just give the short summary here. And remember, this is displayed at the dashboard. And that's basically everything that you have to do to create a custom check. Now with that in mind, let's take a look at that used disk space check. So this is the run method for that. And you can see that we first make the result and we add that meta information there and add a short summary there. And then here we check if the disk space used percentage, which we determined with this little command, if it is larger than the threshold that we specified. If it is larger than the threshold, so imagine that this number is 80 and the error threshold is 70, then we are going to send a message. Now, where does that error threshold here comes from? Well, we're in a regular PHP class, so we can add any property that we'd like, and we also can add any method that we'd like here. And so you can add methods in here that allow your users to configure this check. So if I go to health service provider again, you already saw me use some of these here. So there's also a, I think or database check, I think that was it. Database check, new. And let's take a look at this one. So this one just tries to see if the database connection is still available, and you can, by default, it will use the default Laravel connection name, but I've added a connection name helper in here, so people can just use connection name here and then use that connection name. That's how that works. Cool. So yeah, I think I hope that you see how easy it is to create checks of your own. If I go to the documentation once again and scroll a little bit down to the overview of available checks, you can see that we offer a couple here. But I'm also very eager to learn what checks that you come up with. So if you have made a check, consider just packaging it up and letting me know. There's like an edit button. Oh, this isn't rendered correctly, probably because I made the page a little bit bigger. That's better. You can edit the page here, which will create a PR, and then you can add your package here as well. Now most of these packages are built into the Laravel package, but as an example, I've also made an external package called CPU load. So it's in this repository here. And this is a health check to monitor the CPU load. Let's try it in a few moments. And if you take a look at the source code, the most important thing here is that CPU load check, which extends the check, and this is what happens when it runs. Again, we prepare the short summary, the meta information, and if things are not what we expect, then we just fail this. And by packaging up your check in a separate package, you can just share your code with the world, and other people can make use of your checks, which of course is very nice. Let's try this package. So let's copy this one. So composer require spatie CPU load health check, like that. And now, if everything is good, I have a CPU load check here, which I can just new up. And if I go to my dashboard here and I'm running it with fresh, so all the checks will run, we should see a CPU load here as well. And probably I should format this a little bit better, so you only have like the first things or the first digits here. So this is the output of a Unix-like system. So this number signifies the load in the last minutes. This number is the load in the latest 5 minutes, and this is the load in the last 15 minutes, I think. Okay, let's see if there are any questions. I built something like this in Bash. Nice to see time has improved the approach. Yeah. I think I did a stab at this one before, but it was much more messy than this. Yeah, most of the effort here is just naming things correctly and making things as easy as possible. What about multiple checks database in a different database connection? Well, what you can do then is just have multiple database checks here, and by default, I think you can just give one here the other connection. And probably you want to name this a little bit different, other name, because otherwise you'll end up with two database checks that are the same. So if it's here, yeah, database. So you don't want to have like two database tiles here with name. You can just set it to another name there. That's how that works. One nice feature would be the ability to store the stats to have a time series history. I think you joined a little bit later. It's actually saved into the database, so you can do with here whatever you want. There's also another way of viewing this data. Let's go to the web here. So I'm using the health checks results controller, but there's also a health checks, I think, Json results controller, which renders it all as JSON. So you can have like an external system monitor this as well. Oh, and maybe a few words about security here. You see me here just using a get route for this, and everybody can see this. But it's probably a good idea to put some kind of authorization around this route so that only people that are logged in can see this. But the package doesn't care about it. It's also mentioned in the documentation that you should take care of authentication. The package itself doesn't do that. Okay. So we can monitor all the things now. That's pretty nice, and I think for most people this is pretty good. But there's one more trick that Laravel Health has up its sleeve. So imagine that your application goes into a state where it doesn't function at all anymore, where it can't send notifications, where it's, yeah, your homepage is still running, but there is no queue, there's no schedule, there are no notifications at all. In that case, yeah, Laravel Health can't let you know something because your application itself is down. This is like the downside of having such a check built in the application. Now, I've thought about this as well, and I've added support for sending all of these check results to Odir. And in case you don't know Odir, that's an uptime tracker service that I've built together with my buddy Matthias. Now, I'm not going to show it in this application. I'm going to show it using my own blog. So my own blog is open source. You can find the entire source code here at spatie.dev, and I've already installed the package here, and I've also, and I'm going to off screen get the right website at Odir. So let me show you. So this is fake.dev being monitored into Odir, and in Odir you can actually monitor quite some things. You can measure the performance, if the website is up, if the certificate is okay, if there are no broken links or mixed content. This is something that we added recently, so we can also check the DNS records. We can check if all cron jobs are running, and now we can also check the application health. So let me show you that. So right now we only saw one check here, because what happens behind the scenes is that the health checker I've configured in such a way that it writes the JSON results on a page somewhere protected by a password, and Odir will pick those up. And what the upside of using Odir for this is if Odir notices that no new results are written in for a couple of minutes on the website, it will send you a notification. So if your application isn't able to write new checks or run these checks, you'll actually get a notification from ODIHR like, hey, we didn't get any fresh application health results. You might want to take a look at that. Let's take a look at maybe the settings of this check. So here you can see that it will go to this URL to get the checks, and I'm using that fresh thing here, so ODIHR always gets the most fresh results, and it's protected by a password, so nobody can just run into or see the results of these checks. Now, for the rest, there is no configuration because we will actually rely on everything that the server sends us. You can see that I only have the environment check here, but let's maybe add a couple of more checks, and I have them here. I'm just going to copy paste them. So these are all the checks. Import this class, import all the things. Let's maybe discuss two of these checks. So the Horizon check is a pretty nice one. So what Horizon check will do is it will fail when Horizon is not running or when it's paused. So if you accidentally pause Horizon on production and forget to unpause it, then you'll get a notification. The Flare error occurrence check, it checks if your application has written how much exceptions were written to Flare for your application, and if it were more than a couple, then it will send you also a notification. So I think there's also here probably failed when received more errors then. So if I configure it this way, if there are more than 300 errors received in a minute, then there's probably something wrong. And for those that don't know Flare, that is an exception tracker that I've built with my team at Spatie. It's basically the best error tracker for Laravel applications. Okay. Let's push this to my actual production server and see that those checks are being added here as well. So there's something wrong here. Probably a little enter here, like that. Okay, let's commit this. Let's push this to main. Let's deploy this. Deploying up. And here we don't see the new checks because ODIHR only goes to take a look once a minute, but I can manually request a new run. So let's request a new run here of the application check. And if we're lucky, we get the new results here. And sure enough, all the results are here as well. Now, if any of these checks should fail, then ODIHR will actually send you a notification, and ODIHR has a lot more notification options for mail, Slack, Telegram, webhooks, SMS, Discord. So you could use this notification system and ODIHR well to keep an eye on your health checking results. But all that functionality of ODIHR is optional. You can just use this package without ODIHR at all. Like I've said, there's built-in support for sending notifications. There's maybe one more little detail that I can explain. So in the beginning, I've mentioned that we can have like multiple result store, and I said that I was going to explain why you would need the in-memory health result store. Well, that is handy for if you monitor stuff using ODIHR, then you don't need to store the history locally in your database. ODIHR will store the history for you. Let's see if there's anything else that I've missed here. No, I think I've explained it all. Let's go back to the documentation. So I guess there will be a link somewhere here, like that. So yeah, I think that Laravel Health is a real powerhouse package. I'm going to use it probably on a lot of our project. It's very easy to install. It's pretty powerful. It's very customizable. It has that beautiful dashboard that was styled by Nick. So yeah, I think this could be useful for a lot of people. If you created your own check, going to mention that again, be sure to let me know so we can add it here. I'm probably going to add some more checks myself. I was researching how you can detect that you forgot to restart your queues after your code has been saved. I think that would be like a nice check as well, like you're not running like the freshest code on your queues. And probably I'll add a few other niceties too. So that's basically everything that I had to say. Let me go over the questions one more time, but I think Steve here has one. Is there a way to do like a N1 check or a long-running query check, more APM style checks? I guess you could, because yeah, you can detect it in Laravel. You could use a little bit of cache to store results, or even let your check use a table and use that. So basically, you can just do whatever you want, I think. Okay, I think that's everything. Here, one more by Steve. Nagios for PHP. I think it's just that, indeed. When I was researching this, I saw Nagios as one of the good options, but it just felt a little bit too heavy for me. I think Nagios is pretty good if you have some sysadmin knowledge, but as a PHP developer, something like Laravel Health is more lightweight, I think. Okay, that's it for me. I hope that you liked it. If you have any questions, do let me know. Send me a little tweet or open a discussion at the repository, and I'll see you in the next stream. Bye bye, everybody.